National foods we got wrong. This is coming from the channel Weird History Food. This is a suggestion via Discord. Let's go and jump into this immediately. Let's do it, guys.
How much money would you be willing to bet that sauerkraut comes from Germany?
It doesn't.
In your bank account, right? Well, you'd be wrong and broke. The origins of some so-called national dishes are actually much different than you'd expect. If nothing else, you may never look at a restaurant menu the same way again. Today, we're digging into some signature national dishes whose origins we had totally wrong. But before we dig in, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel and leave a comment to let us know what other surprising food origin stories you'd like to hear about. Okay, time to find out how being wrong never tasted so good. Tempura is a dish of battered and fried seafood or vegetables. Basically, everything you refused to eat when you were a kid, loaded into one bowl. It's one of the most popular Japanese dishes, and usually the first thing you see on a Japanese menu.
Western Spain. I've had tempura in like super small villages in Western Spain, and they've been doing that for hundreds and hundreds of years, guys. So I'm gonna go ahead and forecast it's probably Eastern Portugal and Western Spain. That like right at the border, most likely.
But what most people might not realize is that tempura isn't native to Japan. The dish was actually introduced to Japan by Portuguese Jesuits traveling on a Chinese ship during the mid-16th century. Once the Portuguese arrived in Japan, they stayed for nearly a century, exchanging goods, ideas, and recipes. This included the traditional Portuguese meal, peixinhos da horta, which was battered and fried green beans. The Japanese renamed it tempura, a bit shorter and easier to fit on a menu. And the rest is history.
Literally the reason why my Spanish wife from Spain is part Japanese.
Let's be real. When people think of any pasta dish, they think of Italy. And yes, many pasta sauces found can be traced back to ancient Rome. The Roman culinary book known as Apicius includes numerous cream, white, and wine-based sauces. But the tomato wasn't even introduced to Italy from South America until the 16th century. The first cooked tomato recipe didn't appear in an Italian cookbook until the early 19th century. See, the first red-sauced pasta recipe was written in a French cookbook from 1797.
Hey guys, and you just know that look, that tastes disgusting. I'm seeing it. I'm sure you guys are seeing it. There will be some in the group, in the crowd, that will basically say this is delicious. Guys, French food is one of the worst tasting foods I've ever had in my entire life, guys. Like, as a whole, one of the worst.
Establishing a foundation for derivatives like
and Europe
bolognese,
has a lot of bad food.
and others. So it was really France who changed the pasta game, not
Tasteless
Italy.
food. Unseasoned food.
It doesn't get more German than sauerkraut. Just listen to that name.
The stereotype
sauerkraut.
of it is.
It sounds like it's mad at you.
Right.
However, the quintessentially German side dish and occasional
North Asia, guys.
bratwurst topping didn't actually originate anywhere near the Rhine.
Yeah.
Turns out, pickled cabbage made its way into Germany thanks to Genghis Khan and the Mongols, having been eaten in China for centuries. Sauerkraut, which literally means sour cabbage, was not the first fermented vegetable present in Europe, however.
Guys, look at South Korea. Pay attention to the sour flavor profile that seems to kind of move around that region. You'll understand immediately. This is not German's dish. This is not Germany's dish.
Greek physician Hippocrates mentioned fermented vegetables in his work, praising them as healthy curatives. He even cited sauerkraut as a hangover remedy. It's unclear if fermented foods from the Greeks and Roman eras made it to Germanic territories. If they did, that means sauerkraut is even older than we thought. Croissants might be the most French food item on the planet. What other pastry causes you to spontaneously adopt a French accent when you
Bro, if you say it's not French, I don't know what I'm going to say.
order it?
I'm going to be honest.
Pain au chocolat.
But the flaky treat didn't actually appear in that country until the mid-19th century.
Okay, where's it from?
Austrian baker August Zang
Oh, come on, guys. That's too close.
opened a shop in Paris in 1838, introducing Viennese crescents to the
Guys.
city.
That's like East France.
While Zhang only stayed in France briefly, French bakers soon
I don't know
began
if that
making
counts.
Austrian kipfel with puff pastry. The recipe was tweaked over the years until it became the modern croissant.
Yeah, I don't know if that counts, guys. Caesar salad is Mexican.
Most people think Caesar salad is an American or Italian creation. But it turns out Cesar Cardini, an Italian restaurateur who worked in Tijuana, Mexico, invented the salad. The original Caesar salad, made with romaine lettuce, croutons, Parmesan cheese, boiled egg, garlic, olive oil, and Worcestershire sauce, came to life one weekend in 1924 when Cardini had friends over and wanted to feed them.
Oh, was that a raw
Tapping
egg?
into that same last-minute inspiration that has produced countless grade school book reports, he simply tossed together the only ingredients he had at the moment, which turned out to be a hit. 2 years later, Caesar's brother Alex added the anchovies. Cardini thrived south of the border thanks to Americans fleeing restrictions brought on by Prohibition. Even author and celebrity chef Julia Child remembered visiting Cardini's restaurant in her youth. One of my early remembrances of restaurant life was going to Tijuana in 1925 or 1926 with my parents, who were wildly excited that they should finally lunch at Caesar's restaurant. Word spread about Tijuana and the good life, and about Cesar Cardini's restaurant, and about Caesar's salad. Imagine traveling to another country just to try Caesar salad. The 20s were a wild time. You can't think of frog legs without...
Guys, I'm going to be honest here. When it comes to frog legs, I think stereotypically we're going to go ahead and say probably France, but it's probably everywhere. Like, I think everywhere ate this animal. I cannot say that there's one place that created the concept of eating the animal that is probably one of the easiest animals in the world to catch if you have a cup and you can kind of flip it around on it. But either way,
thinking of France. Or about frogs, I guess. However, despite their status as a French delicacy, frog legs were also eaten by Dutch and British diners as early as the 17th century. Believed to have been introduced to England by the French, there was a skepticism about the dish among British and American colonists alike.
What about the frogs? What legs you took off? Are they disabled now?
Both groups found French foods to be
What?
oversauced and overseasoned. A root.
that's crazy because French food is absolutely disgusting. And I think that's pretty much the rule, it seems, out there. I've spent a lot of time in France between Paris and Lyons. And just bring me to the closest American restaurant I can possibly get to in France, guys. I'm sorry. If someone says that this food is underseasoned, then that same person most likely consumes copious amounts of mayonnaise and thinks probably black pepper is hot.
Used to hide poor quality fare, which is
And
a bit
garlic is
ironic
spicy.
considering how strongly modern gourmet foods favor French cuisine. But it turns out a recent archaeological discovery potentially places the origins of frog legs on British shores. In 2013, researchers in Amesbury, England, found evidence that ancient Britons were eating cooked toad or frog at some point between 6,250 and 7,600 BC.
Okay, bro, just say that's the only place you looked. Because, guys, the people have been eating this animal for a very long time. Like, there are some, like, extremely primitive, moderately untouched societies, specifically in South America, who still consume frog legs. So I hear what you're saying, bro. But I think the world consumed this animal. If they could catch it, they're going to eat it.
Which makes sense. If you're living off the land, you'd eat whatever you could catch. And
Right.
frogs are generally pretty easy to grab. Plus, they have those irresistibly meaty thighs, like they go to jazzercise 3 times a week.
Pass.
According to researcher David Jacques,
Pass.
it would appear that thousands of years ago, people were eating a Heston Blumenthal-style meal on this site, 1¼ miles from Stonehenge, consisting of toad's legs, aurochs, wild boar, and red deer
aurochs?
with hazelnuts for main. Another course of salmon and trout, and finishing off with blackberries.
Parasites.
That prehistoric meal sounds like it would cost you a mortgage payment nowadays. Anybody who's ever eaten at the Cheesecake Factory can tell you how all-American cheesecake is. Cheesecake.
When the south of Spain was within the Roman Empire, I'm almost positive that's a thing there, specifically the south of Spain and Segovia also. Like they still consume like the origin point of this. So I'm gonna go ahead and say probably Roman. Most likely.
Cake is commonly believed to have been invented in New York by Arnold Reuben, who also concocted the Reuben sandwich. However, cheesecake is way older than the United States. Europeans have been making cheesecake for centuries. And before that, the ancient Greeks and Romans were chowing down on the rich dessert. Cheesecakes in ancient Greece were made with cheese curds and honey, while Roman cheesecakes, called placenta, not a great name, would have crusts or be crafted into loaves. Can't imagine
Yeah, it's something like that.
booking a table for 2 at the placenta factory.
Like guys, don't eat cheesecakes in Spain. They're not very good, bro. So I'm not, listen, I may seem to be pointing out all the inadequacies, guys. I'm sorry. But if you are American and you are going to other places to try their idea of what things are, like apple pie, for example, oh my God, guys. All right. Be very cautious. be very, very cautious ordering apple pie somewhere else. Okay? It's going to be tricky. They eat apple
Most
pie
people
also.
think of fortune cookies
This is Japanese.
as a quintessentially Chinese treat because you get them at Chinese restaurants. You don't even have to ask for them. They just bring them out to you with a bill. The popular story is that fortune cookies became part of the Chinese-American tradition when they were popularized during the early 20th century by Asian immigrants in California. Attributed to both a San Francisco-based landscape architect and a preacher from Los Angeles, fortune cookies were available nationwide by the mid-1930s. The next time you're at a seemingly super authentic Chinese restaurant and you crack open a fortune cookie at the end of your meal,
Are they
just
animated?
remember that cookie is not Chinese. Turns
What
out
is
fortune
that?
cookies are actually a
Is that a movie?
Japanese creation. According to researcher Yasuko Nakamachi, fortune cookies were present in Japan during the 19th century. Their distinct triangle shapes are represented in both writing and artwork from the period. Furthermore, Japanese baker Takeshi Matsuhitsu
Yeah, like they're very different though. Like these are actually delicious. Like seriously, these are seriously amazing. But the ones that we have are disappointing.
insists
Very.
that treats filled with fortunes date back to the 17th century, when Tsujura Senbei, Omikuji Senbei, and Suzu Senbei provided fortunes and numerological guidance. But some argue that the modern-day version of a fortune cookie is uniquely Chinese-American. Derek Wong, an executive at one of the leading fortune cookie manufacturers in the world, insists the Japanese may have invented the fortune cookie, but it's Chinese-American culture. It only happens here, not in China. In other words, we may
That's
not have
fair.
invented the fortune cookie, but we made it our own.
Right. It's fair.
Spaghetti and meatballs is a dish that feels as Italian as Lamborghinis and Vespas.
It's
But
not.
The truth
It's definitely. That is 100% American. Like the idea of it is American. Like think about when, like this type of thing, like was created. You know what was super expensive? Meat, guys. Meat was incredibly expensive. There's legitimately no way that this could actually be a thing. This is almost purely, most likely, late 1800s, early 1900s, Italian American, most likely New York 5 Points neighborhood. Okay.
truth about this comfort food may surprise you. Red sauce and pasta dishes didn't start showing up in cookbooks until 1797.
Right.
While that pairing is French in nature, remember our red sauce pasta discussion from earlier? The
Yeah,
addition of
we were here.
meatballs is decidedly American.
Spaghetti and meatballs. Tell me about that.
Meatballs were served with tomato-based sauces and pasta only when Italian immigrants came to the United States. As Italian immigrants flocked to the United States during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, they brought
Bro,
their food
you are-
preferences with them.
That is wild amount of makeup.
In Italy, meat had been difficult to afford, but in America, Italian immigrants could
That's the
purchase meat
story
with
of
increasing
it.
regularity. Often opting for lower quality meat, they mixed proteins with bread and milk to produce moist, delicious meatballs.
Better than Mama's, huh?
As Italian restaurants paired starches and proteins, canned tomatoes and dry pasta offered cheap, quick dining options in Italian American homes. Soon, spaghetti and meatballs were a staple of American cuisine. The saying, as American as apple pie, has been
Okay, apple pie is an American. Let me go back to the cheesecake argument here. Apple pie definitely is not American, but we make it better than everyone else does. Sorry. Okay. I understand that the point of putting apples with sugar into a pie is definitely not American, but whatever we do to it makes it delicious, and whatever everyone else does to it is not delicious. I think we have absolute, apple superiority. Okay, I think we won. We won that battle because I have tried apple pie in no less than 50 different countries. I would say, yeah, I'd probably say that, right? And I can tell you this right now: we make it the best. Everyone else's apple pie is disappointing. It's sad. It's sad. Think of apple pie. Think of the feeling apple pie makes you feel as you're consuming it, and it's going down your esophagus, right? You're moving it around in your mouth, and just in case you have some, I don't know, like vanilla bean, like a la mode, basically. You get what I mean here, guys, right? You will not feel that feeling. You will not taste that taste outside of America, and no, hold on. Andorra, you'll taste it because they brought like American chefs over, and Dubai. I would say these three places are where you're going to get real apple pie, real American apple pie that actually tastes delicious and doesn't taste like sadness, guys. Sadness.
Been used to describe anything that is quintessentially American.
What
like
are you
cable
doing with
television
that pie?
and 10-cent beer night. But that dish didn't get its start in the United States. It turns out Americans didn't invent pies or
What is-
apples. The dessert was brought to North America by
American
European
pie.
settlers,
What is that?
particularly those from England. When colonists arrived in North America, they found only one type of apple, crab apples, which they did not enjoy eating. Indeed, no one does. Crab apples are great for chucking at people, but aren't especially tasty. So as more settlers arrived in the New World, they brought all kinds of apples with them, bringing as many seeds and saplings over from Europe as they could. And what better way to eat those apples than glazing them with sugar and cramming them into a pie? But it wasn't a new invention. European settlers were simply baking foods they'd been eating for centuries. An English recipe from 1381 attests to early versions of apple pie featuring figs, raisins, pears, and saffron in addition to apples. But that McDonald's apple pie...
You see how they mess it up, guys? Like sometimes things are just simple. Like it's like eating a burger from a burger restaurant outside of America also. Okay. I've noticed that when you encounter, specifically like in, let's say, South Europe, East Europe, you start to realize you go to a burger place, they over-season these burgers in a way that doesn't make any sense. I get it. The only thing that you actually add seasoning to is the burger you're messing up. Okay, how about this? Salt, pepper on a burger, and it's the simplest thing in the world. But for some reason, everywhere else you go, they mess it up. They completely butcher the perfect burger. I feel bad for the animal. Okay, you shouldn't have destroyed it like that. And that's what they do to apple pie, guys. Right? If that makes any sense, I am very passionate about these things here. Please don't mess up the food. All right? And don't waste the animal's life on either not seasoning or over seasoning. Okay? In the times when you need to either not season or over season. Okay? It's not backwards, guys. All right? Okay.
Still belongs to the red, white, and blue. It's tough to associate any other country with French fries.
No, French fries, there are a couple of stories about French fries. French fries could either come from American soldiers in Belgium. They tasted the potatoes fried there, and then they were like, wait a second, this is cheap and fast. Let's go, when I get back to America, I want to go ahead and try this. I think it was WW1, was it, guys? But either way, I think that's the overall agreed upon origin point of French fries.
Because France is right there in the name. That branding is très François. But the popular side dish, or meal if you're feeling courageous, probably didn't originate there. Fried potatoes were a common street food in both France and Belgium during the mid-19th century. Because potatoes are tasty, and if we're being honest, they should come out of the ground already fried. It's difficult to know exactly who tried them first, but it's believed that modern French fries, fried potatoes cut into perfect finger food slivers, were most likely the creation of French-speaking Belgians during World War I. So how did they get that misleading name? One version claims that American soldiers in Europe during the Great War observed Belgian fishermen frying potatoes and called the food French fries because the men spoke French. But there is another story that identifies Thomas Jefferson as the person who gave French fries their name. At his home, he would serve pommes de terre frites à cru en petites tranches, or raw potatoes cut into small pieces and then fried. When French chef Honore Julien prepared the dish for Jefferson's guests, the founding fathers also talked about having eaten the potatoes while in France. So why don't we call them Belgian fries? Oh, I guess those would be waffle fries. Man, those are tasty. So what do you think? Which food origin story surprised you the most?
To be honest, none of them. And a lot of it just comes down to the fact that I'm fat and I like eating, right? And I definitely have traveled a a lot. I'm over 140 passport stamps, guys. And so, like, I've been to a lot of places. I've tasted a lot of food. So none of these things really surprise me, other than the fact that people keep trying to make apple pie. Okay, like, it is not that hard, guys. You don't overdo it. Why are there pears in my apple pie? Okay. Okay. Why are there pears in my apple pie, bro? This is ridiculous. Okay, this is listen. Okay, you guys all have an absolutely amazing day. Enjoy your day thoroughly. The fact that you just made it to the end of the video says a whole lot, actually. We have a couple other channels. MrLboyd Music, MrLboyd Movie Reacts, along with MrLboyd Discusses, where I just generally speak about the things that specifically matter to me. But in the meantime, I'll catch you guys later.